All right. Hey there, Bachi Bros, Hoes, and Those. We are live. It's your boy Aniki, and we will be covering chapter 128 of Kagurabachi. Left off with the Masumi pulling up, trying to ruin everything because they are more comfortable with human trafficking to save their lives. Um, Hope you guys have had a good week. We will be on a 2 week break after this chapter, unfortunately, because the magazine's on break. Sometimes I try to think of things to do on these off weeks, but other times I just really do take that week off. But yeah, let's get right into it because love me some Bachi. I already read this week's Hunter x Hunter. This week's One Piece. This week's Hunter x Hunter is insane. I'm yeah. Benjamin might have miscalculated. We'll see. We will see what happens here. But if you haven't started reading the kind of art of Hunter x Hunter, please get around to that. You are doing yourself a disservice. All right, but let's get back into the Bachi. Gonna start ranting. Guaranteed. Oh my goodness. Why are we struggling here? All right, I was about to say we're on a land connection. What are we doing? All right. Come on. But I hope everybody listening has found this. Well, I'll also be going through and probably making a podcast list for all previous episodes of Bachi just for the sake of having things nice and organized and playlisted. I've been doing some updates on the channel in general in that regard. All right, let's see. Chapter is struggling. Why are we? Okay, here, let's just start a new session real quick. I love when my internet has a stroke. Gotta read it off my phone. I will. Don't play with me. I will do what it takes. Why are we struggling? All right, hold on. Let's see something real quick. I'm looking. Yeah, it's saying I dropped like 21% of my frames too. Hey, what up, Tiger Blaster? I'm checking my internet service right now. It's funny because as soon as I opened the app, my like connectivity improved a little bit here. But what's going on here? Yeah, I don't need Wi-Fi extenders, dude. I'm in an apartment. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? See. Okay, well, they do admit there's some connection issues going on here. All right, well, we'll have to worry about that later. Hopefully, I don't drop too much. Says we're dropping frames. Hopefully, we're not dropping audio at least. Especially because I'm, again, on a wired connection. This is absurd. I swear. Okay, so real quick, time for a little angry soapbox rant. I hate the way internet is set up in the United States. And I hate the way that these companies just agree to like chop up regions, cities, towns, whatever, and basically monopolize um, districts so that you only really have one choice for good internet so that they don't actually have to maintain quality. It is absurd that as somebody who used to sell AT&T briefly, that if I lived one block west of here, I would not have to choose between I would be able to choose between Spectrum and AT&T, but because I live on the east side of a street, I don't have the option to choose like the fiber optic internet that's available in my area. This is stupid. Stop handshaking and actually give us quality products. It's so fucking ridiculous, man. It should not like it just it doesn't need to be this way, man. It doesn't need to be this way. Just give me actually good internet product, good service. I pay you nearly $100 a month and we get this bullshit. And the thing is, it's like that's not even just a here exclusive problem. This is something that exists as an issue basically everywhere in this country. You have monopolized regions, just not. It's ridiculous. Actually, just ridiculous. Okay. Okay. Books up. Back to the chapter. Just had to get on my soapbox, vent a little bit about that, just because I'm seeing like my thing drop frames and stuff. So, Rokuhira, don't look away. We're in Smelter Part 3, Chapter 128 of Kagurabachi. The fire isn't going out. So we got Subaru here prioritizing this. Yurita Sensei hasn't slept a wink in almost 2 days, too. Plus, he's been using his sorcery the entire time. He's got to be even more exhausted than Rokuhira. And the battle is beginning. Okay, Ninja Stars deflected with Chanclas. Well, unfortunately, my doppelgangers aren't much use as fighters. I'm the only decent one. Okay, that's actually an important detail for us to get. You take that one, Joji. I can't see a damn thing, so we see he's actually splitting up the combat duty. And I wonder if I'm even being like coming through. Yo, Tiger, am I actually coming through? Somebody just like send something in the chat real quick. Here, actually, here, let's do this. Yeah, let's just see if I'm actually making it through. Because I've got so many drop frames. It's like dropping 25% of the frames that I even have. That's ridiculous. Okay, you can hear me. Good, good, good. Thank you, Deshaun, as well. Uh, yeah. All right. We got he's pulling out the blade. He's deflected from behind, so he doesn't actually need to be able to see, it looks like. I knew it, they're going after the furnace. Okay. I'm just making sure since it's basically telling me that 25% of my frames drop. Obviously, like visuals aren't as important for what we're doing here because it's not like I can show the whole page without getting copyright struck anyway. So, uh, but yeah, damn. This man instantly broke his blade. You're going to need a better blade. Katana is surprisingly vulnerable to sideways force. That's what he was aiming for? I couldn't help myself. Your form was so clean. I see. He's right. We're not going to be able to put out that fire, which means he's about to try to kill Rokuhira. Damn. Oh. Oh my. Yeah. Spectrum is trolling. Spectrum is trolling. All right, let's see. All right. Here. Shonen Jump app. Spectrum is playing games. I will read this off my phone if I have to. I do not care. I do not care. You're not keeping me from my manga, bro. It is what it is. Like, what is this nonsense? All right. Absurd. Throttling a LAN connection is insane. There's an Ethernet cord plugged in, buddy. All right. Yep. Instantly, they went for the try to assassinate Rokuhira tech. Got the blade at his neck. So the thing here is that this, to me, I'm gonna be honest with you, like with this page, looking at it, this is a bluff. You are not going to kill the man who is actively working on an explosive material and risk exploding yourselves and a bunch of citizens. Because that's the opposite of what you're trying to do. You're hoping to avoid a disaster. You're hoping to avoid causing harm, anything like that. And you're scared of the volatility of this element. Why would you purposely kill somebody who was actually actively regulating the flame and working with the material? Like that would just be stupid. So this should be a bluff. And Joji's wondering when they got behind here. He says they're on a whole different level. They're virtually undetectable. Unishige Rokuhira. Those guys seem oddly invested in this. It turns out he was involved with Princess Chiaki. He's a nobody with nothing to lose. For someone like him to ignore the country's decision and risk disaster, and also ignore Princess Chiaki's own decision, he's just desperate to be the hero who rescues her. I mean, so what if he is, bro? So what if he is? Man can't love the woman of his life? Crazy. We see Sheba still there, laying in the grass, coughing up blood because his employee benefits are cut off. He's the real spark we must put out. That day, all right, if Sheba hadn't come, I think Chiaki would have died. And I couldn't do anything as my legs turned to jelly. That day was the reason I started making katana. I knew I had to face my demons. I knew there was something I could do, so I threw myself into it. Even so, every time I saw her, Chiaki would cook delicious meals for me. Even what happened to her because of me. I'm fine, look, you can barely see the scar anymore. Until the day she became Princess Soga. Princess Chiaki's vision was part of why the enchanted plate plan was rejected. She predicted smelting would be dangerous. Princess Chiaki didn't want this. Then and now, it's always her who's protecting me. All I could do was keep forging katana. Yeah, see, that's the other thing, right? Like, you're talking about, oh, he's just desperate to be her big hero. Nigga, y'all are desperate to be the heroes. And y'all not even risking yourselves. You're risking a young woman. See, that's just like a failure right there. Like, bro, mm, face my demons? No. The truth was, it was all I had. My dad's katana wounded Chiaki. My dad's blood drove my mother over the edge. And even then, all I had were these red eyes of mine that my dad praised. I was so ashamed. Unishige, don't grow up to be like that. Mom, I'm gonna protect you. In the end, I've never managed to protect a single person I care about. I. And like I thought, Subaru notices, Joji notices, even the Masumi notices. Even now, he's still focused. Does this matter more than your life? All of you, sheesh. Why don't you quit getting in his way? And Sheba's moving around a bit, coughing up blood, suffering. You know what? This is the thing that I like about Sheba here, because okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about, and you know, let me finish the chapter first because we only got like a couple more pages, so I'll circle back to this point, as we say in corporate lingo. Put a pin in this, and we'll circle back. Um, I saw his medical chart when we got back from Irishima. It's got to be agonizing for him to even breathe, let alone stand. You're gonna kill yourself. So what? And we see the flashback of Mashiro. I saw a guy crush a ship into a ball, even with a hole in his stomach. And we see more people from the Masumi moving in. And right as they actually try to go in and risk all their lives to kill themselves and everybody in the surrounding area, Iba makes his move. Rokuhira, this time, you take the glory. Okay, so I think I like that this further examines Kunishige's motivations, and it highlights the technical selfish aspect of this, because ultimately this is about him atoning in his own way for his lack of action, and action being something that people carry with them, and their inability to save or help others is something that I think is a very human condition. In regard to Rokuhira, I remember when my great grandma died, and uh, Oh, this was like my senior year of high school. Not like it was my senior year of high school. I remember going into that year of high school. She had been diagnosed with lung cancer, and they said she had a tumor the size of like a lemon in her lung. Uh, I've told this story before, but she took chemotherapy and things like that. Made it through the holidays and immediately stopped doing it basically around Christmas. So it was just like she kind of just wanted to get through the holidays and then be done with it. But I remember like going to work when I worked in a nursing home at the time, kind of like seeing people die and then going back to her house, making sure she was taking pain meds. I remember the first time that I ever pulled like a 24-hour day. It was when she was too scared to like move from her chair in the living room to go lay down in bed. And it like took my brother getting home from work and my uncle being there at like 7 a.m. before we could finally like get her to move and go to bed. And I remember being at her funeral after she died and still feeling like I hadn't done enough and that nothing I did had been useful because she still died. And obviously, I'm like 17 years old, not like I am 17 years old. In that section, I remember just the weight of the guilt. And in this case, I see the same thing here with Rokuhiro, where he feels this weight of guilt because he knows that that sword was created by his father. He knows that he isn't the one who actually helped protect Chiaki. And Shiba, even though it's never stated that he had communicated this guilt, and it's obvious that he wouldn't have, based on what we've had explained to us about his character, that he wouldn't have said, I feel guilty because you had to save us, Shiba. If you had not been here, she would have died. And I am ashamed of that. Sheba understands that he would have felt shame for his inactivity, which is why he says here, you get the glory for saving Chiaki. I think that's like a brilliant way to highlight the understanding between the two. The fact that Sheba has been able to observe and learn about Kunishige without asking all these questions, possibly, or getting this information told to him. When you think about the way that Shiba sorcery functions, it requires him to have a grasp on the finer details. Ultimately, he's accelerating particles, he's changing their speed, density, weight, shape. He's doing a lot of very like Shiba sorcery is easy to think of and see as this high powered, high caliber sorcery, but it's very clear when you think about the way that it works and what it's manipulating, that this is a very high technical sorcery that requires you to really think about what you're doing so that you don't just accidentally make your hand split in half or anything that you're modifying. And if you think back, currently we've never seen Shiba show up with his hand smoking. Adult Shiba, 42-year-old Shiba, has never shown up after fighting somebody with his hand smoking or burning. But the first time we see him use it and he drops people off, and like as they're falling, they're already kind of like catching on fire. The friction resistance tech was not something he had fully mastered at the time when using Itsudora. So we know that Shiba has even more so, even though he's gassed up already in this timeline, had advanced even further. But then when we see him talking about how he's got to be willing to sacrifice his life and take these chances, um, because he saw Mashiro crumple that ship into a little ball while he still had a hole in his stomach. You see, this chapter is a lot about survivor's guilt and how you move past that and what steps these characters took to redeem themselves in their eyes for what they've made it through. I guess it's like the short way to say that, right? This chapter is a lot about survivor's guilt. But what's more, with Sheba, you see, and I think it's brilliant also because the Sheba that we see in modern era feels so untouchable, so distant for a lot of characters. People are setting up elaborate plans. People disrupt communication so that he's not notified. He's constantly trying to figure out, obviously, the best move because he's taking on all this responsibility. When you think about the battle that happened during the raid on the Kamunabi headquarters, he single handedly saved hundreds of people. And even then, you could see, like, as he was going through trying to pull as many people as possible out of the Kamunabi headquarters, get as many of them to safety, he was still trying to figure out um, what more he could do, or if he was going to be doing enough. And Samura took, a lot of that weight so Shiba could go through and actually keep saving people. And he was redirecting them. Hey, you got to focus. Do this. Do this. But Shiba has constantly, because of the utility of his sorcery, not been a main combatant. And instead, he is always, and I think this is kind of the curse of his character, is that Shiba is too useful to fight. He's too useful to die. And because of that, he must live and watch others die in his place. And so I'm curious. And unfortunately, as much as we like to joke about, oh, when we see Shiba fight on screen, blah, blah, Shiba's another one of those characters that if we see him have like a proper, the chapter is genuinely focused on him and this fight, because we kept cutting away when he was fighting the Sazanami clan. And we got some introduction to Datsenseki, some stuff like that, just to, the materialization of the spirit, or like the spirit energy materialization with the jellyfish for the little one. Uh, I think if we ever have dedicated Shiba is fighting this person, we're not focusing on, what is Chihiro doing at the same time? What is da 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 da? Like if we ever are sitting in it, that's the fight where Shiba dies. Because it's clear that he's never supposed to be the main fighter. His character is cursed to be the passenger. He has one of the most powerful abilities. He's refined it to an insane degree, but he is not to be one of the main people on the front lines. It is a reflection of how bad things are if Shiba is the one fighting. And if he's the main combatant or the main hero of a moment. Because ultimately, when you have a sorcery that's as precise as his, if you're fighting somebody who's on your level, it's kind of a problem. If you're fighting somebody on your level while constantly adjusting for all these variables that would go into it, and you have other responsibilities to take care of, you're at a massive disadvantage in comparison to, say, even like Chihiro, who's fighting somebody who's on or above his level, or even Samura. And we already kind of did see that with Samura, right? He's fighting, adjusting the flames so that he's doing a lot to keep Chihiro safe, even if, Chihiro was like the attack plan. So it's worth noting Shiba's character arc when it, and obviously I'm kind of in the camp that at this point I would like to see Shiba live, but I think that's kind of the trick that a lot of mangaka like to employ with characters like Shiba. They really get you. They really get you in a position where you see enough of their suffering, you see enough of what they witnessed and what they've gone through, and they really make you want them to live. They make you really crave and desire to see this person have a successful and happy life. But if I'm honest and we look at the story of Kagurabachi, what makes you think anybody from the old generation truly gets a happy ending? If Akamura targets Shiba, yeah, we should be very, very worried. We should not expect Shiba to get to live if Akamura seriously decides to go after him. In fact, I could easily see Act 3 opening with the loss of Shiba because I view him as kind of a reflection of the old and the stability that the old guard and old ways are supposed to bring. And so if you take away a character like Shiba, we don't have that for Chihiro, and he's fully forced to forge his own in a new path forward. And I think that's another way that you symbolize like passing the baton, especially if, for example, Akamura were to locate Chihiro while he's forging the intent upgrade or something like that. And then you have I'm blanking on Samura's daughter's name right now. Y'all know I randomly forget names in this series all the time. But you have Mini Samura, Iori, haha. Didn't have to wait for somebody to say it in the chat. Iori finally opened and utilized Samura's blade and actually utilized the feathers over a large distance to get Chihiro away from Akamura. But we then have Shiba standing there fighting to make sure that Akamura can't quickly track them down or anything like that. And so I definitely see death in his future, but it's a death that when we see Sheba die, it will be the sign, one, that we're heading into like the final phases of the story, but two, that Chihiro is both ready and slightly underprepared to take the next step and be fully in control of his mission. I just don't think we get to keep any of the Ogres. And obviously, you could say, "Oh, well, what if we just what if Azami's the one who dies there?" I think it would be Azami and Sheba. I think Azami would not let Sheba die alone, but I also don't see a world in which, even with Azami getting his arms reattached, he can do anything meaningful against Akamura. So I think the old group kind of has to be put out to pasture, unfortunately. And to a certain degree, Akamura is a part of the old group. And I think that with them battling and with Chihiro's like big battle with him, that would be kind of the thing that he thought about in his final moments. Because I don't think Akamura is the kind of person who, one, I don't think Kagurabachi is the kind of series that would just let Akamura live at the end, especially because of the nature of the Shinichi. But two, I don't think Akamura is the kind of person, based off his character, who would allow himself to live. And so him taking his own life even makes more sense to me than Chihiro successfully killing him. But it's still something that we have to consider. Uh, and then as far as Yurita as Subaru, I'm interested to see so much more from this character because of the fact that he's willing to take this. And then we find out that his clones aren't useful in sorcery, which I find, or in combat, sorry, which I kind of find fascinating because I thought that the entire premise of it would be that he'd kind of jump you with his clones, but if they just kind of run a distraction and then he's the only one who can fight you, that also makes him giving up this sorcery valuable, especially because I could kind of see whatever his enchanted blade does, more or less not replicating, but giving him a similar functionality because we've seen stuff like play, which you know, um, Hirohuko used, and you've got like corpses and stuff attacking you, but then you also have factors like the fish with Kuro and using those for detection, slashing, all these other things. Uh, Samura's feathers for detection. It just kind of makes sense that whatever ability he has, he could potentially leverage for. Uh, hey, look, I'm gonna be easy on Joji because he's got a Nightwing mask on all the time, or that's just his face. I'm not sure which one. It might just be his face. But I feel like Joji wasn't introduced as this heavy hitter, but rather as a somewhat respectable sorcerer who works with the government. And that makes him one of the better forms of passengers because it's okay. Was Rukohira able to bring hope to the average person? And the fact that Joji commits to this fight and respects them enough to do that shows that this is how it's won over. It's the determination of him. It's not the enchanted blades themselves. It's the determination, willingness, and capability and the witnessing of his genius that brings people over to his side. The idea of the weapon isn't what got people sold on the plan. Obviously, we know these things basically become nukes, but that's not entirely why they ended up being made. It was people respecting the determination of a man who's just trying to save someone who shouldn't be sacrificed. Uh, and the reality is that they fully expect, especially with um, the seizing of the Datsun Seki that they're going after, for them to try to blow them up anyway. So when it comes down to it, it's like, well, should we really hand over Princess Chiaki, hand over the Datsun Seki, wipe out the entire Soga clan, and give our opponent all the cards? When we put it like that, the answer is very obviously no, we should not do that. And so I think that's the main thing there is like they have to know they're not doing something that's actually practical. And that's what this opportunity allows him to. And even, if he's willing to do this with his potential death on the line, then he's actually dedicated to it. But Joji, I mean, he's supposed to be a scrub. I think he is supposed to be a scrub. Obviously, we always want the people who could potentially impact the people we're rooting for to not be scrubs. But in this case, I do think that this is it's very intended. Uh, Man, I hate that we have to wait 2 weeks though for the next chapter because you know what? I will say this: Hokozano leverages his cliffhangers very well. If he's going on a break, if he's even when it was like, I'm taking this break for my health, he gave us an excellent little. All right, I'll be back in 3 months, 2 months. I want y'all to think about this. Think about what I just showed you. Have fun with that. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm having fun with this. Please come back when you're healthy and drop some bangers on us. And now we get this, and I'm very satisfied. I'm very happy. Uh, Man, I love the idea also of Rokuhira being like, I couldn't keep the promise to protect my mom. Um, the personal guilt he feels for, oh, I probably drove my dad a little insane by having better eyes, even if they're the only thing that he praised. But also because that's the only positive feedback he's gotten from his dad, who used to beat his mom and used to beat him and kind of went insane. It's like his family was destroyed by their talents, by the things that made them great. And now he has to find a way to value the good he's capable of, even when life has shown him that that's not worth treasuring. And so the journey of Kunishige here is just so good. And I know that's I've already said that, but it's I like very personal character journeys. Um, And definitely, I think the next time we have a big conclusion, I'm gonna probably try and see who's available. I kind of want to get some people on air, get some angles, multiple thoughts on the Bachi communities. Because I used to do a lot of like bigger podcasts with people on and have nice big discussions. But in the meantime, definitely, I think I'm sticking with the Bachi Bros Inc. podcast name. Uh, it just feels right. You guys know I love to. And then that way, anytime we have guests on, that's why it's incorporated. But Bachi Bros, Hoes, and Those. I think, okay, tell you what, predictions for next chapter. Let me do that first. I think we don't necessarily get a full blown enchanted blade, but I don't think they can kill him. I think Shiba does actually manage to move these people out of the way. We get something of a prototype, and we get a shift in government approval and opinion, and we begin to move towards not giving Chiaki away and getting those blades made and having people move forward with actually defending the country and actually defending its citizens, which is supposed to be the job of a government. Um, that's my personal take. It could be considered too soon. Actually, let me double check something real quick. I want to see how many chapters we've had. It's storming. Maybe that's why my internet was being weird or looked like it was being weird. That also means I'm not going to the laundromat today now. Rip me. Because let's see. Yeah, let's see. Here. Cameron Bailey. Man, if nobody got me, Cameron Bailey got me, and this chapter was delectable. Let me see. Let me see something. Because I want to. Kagurabachi. Let's see. Because I do believe. Let's see. Yeah, we're getting close to what should be. Eh, yeah, we got about 3-4 chapters before it'll likely be the end of this volume. So, because if we assume that chapter 123 is the start of another volume, maybe. Yeah, 123 feels like this a good start of a volume. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. That's why I was checking the chapter count. So if we look at a volume as like 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, and then maybe up to 130, uh, we would have basically two more chapters, flesh like rounding out this part, and then we'd be transitioning and advancing further into the Seitei War. That's kind of where I think this is going. That's eight chapters for a volume. Basically, move over to the next volume. Maybe a ninth chapter because this chapter is only 15 pages. Um, but I mean, let's see. All right, now I got to do the petty thing and count the page. 123, 19 pages. 124, 19 pages. Oh, let's see. See, 124 could also be the end of a volume. That's the issue here. But yeah, no, I think 124 is better at the start of a volume than the end. But it could be the end. Because 125, 126, 127, 128, that's only 4 chapters into a volume. I guess we could switch gears mid-volume, but that would feel weird, I guess, depending on... Well, no, because I guess you have to have a Fallout talk, right? So a little bit of a talk about the Fallout, blades being made, people switching gears, actually start the process with approval and a better setup, skip the fine details because we already got those in the prototyping phase, and then we move into the next stage of the war arc. So that could be another 4 chapters, but I do think starting a volume at around 123 and then progressing forward from there is probably the better move here. But yeah, we got the Roku Hero motivation. We've gotten... So I guess we got some Shiba stuff, some Roku Hero stuff. I would like to center a little more time on Chiaki, just because she's dead, and obviously Kunishige is dead too. Yes, but Kunishige is talked about more in modern times than Chiaki, because her being the princess in the Soga clan system was basically destroyed and gone. So that doesn't come up as much, which I think is an interesting method for storytelling, because it's obvious that this system was very important, but it's outdated, we'll say, or archaic. And so it doesn't feel like, oh, this is a giant retcon. It feels like, oh, wait, we're getting information on how their society was structured pre-Kamunabi, and now we're seeing why this system fell away and how we ended up in the modern era. And so this is the tail end of a previous regime structure, etc. So the Soga clan is definitely getting wiped out, and I think we have to start building towards that. The rise of Akamura Soga and him becoming the focus of the next stretch could be an interesting direction for this to go, because we already got some of those traces in this section with Rokuhira, and it's not like Rokuhira isn't going to be relevant to the Akamura Soga section either, because their relationship clearly builds up and there is a trust there, especially for him to entrust what he considers the most dangerous enchanted blade to him. So all in all, I think if we transition into more of a Soga focus, him actually climbing the ladder within the Soga clan, and that'll be the key factor there. I think that's where we need to go. So yeah, but for sure, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I don't know if I'll maybe, unlikely because of weird stuff with the internet, and I don't know if I trust my system to run a gaming stream with what's been going on lately. But maybe we'll try a gaming stream next week, just so we have something to do, some time to hang out. But yeah, Bachi Bros, hoes, and those gonna be heading out today. I appreciate everybody that stopped through. Cameron Bailey, Tiger Blaster, Deshaun, and Stretch, and anybody who was lurking in the chat, didn't say anything. Still appreciate you being here. Anybody who's listening on the back end, I will be playlisting all the Kagurabachi episodes, and then make sure to set those to a podcast setting as well, in case you guys just want to throw those on. Like me, I listen to podcasts at work. I listen to a lot of League of Legends esports specifically podcast while at work. And so if you're like the kind of person who likes a podcast, especially since I use YouTube Music, you kind of need things to be set to the podcast setting for people to be able to just close their phone and listen to it. I'm going to make sure I have that set up for you guys. All right.